Good morning, folks. I wanted to talk briefly about the exit ticket from Friday before we move on to the next lesson. So here we have what you were seeing on Friday. The order of this matrix is a 4 by 5. There are 4 rows, 5 columns. So it's a 4 by 5 order. And then down here, element V23. So I'm going to go down to the second row and then 3 over to 14. This right here would be V23. So 14 would have been the final answer there. Give me 2 seconds. We are going to get started here. So we talked a lot about other simple operations on Friday of matrices. Matrix multiplying is a little bit more intricate. So this is probably, if you're going to hit a challenge, this is going to be the topic that's going to challenge you. But it's also about as most difficult as all of this chapter can get. So a couple details. You are basically multiplying rows times columns. So rows of your first matrix times the columns in the second matrix, because you would have two matrices together like this. So I'm going to go across a row and down a column, and that's how you would multiply. Now you can also only multiply certain types of matrices together. Just like with addition and subtraction, you have to have compatible orders, but they're not necessarily going to be the same. So it says on this slide the number of columns in the first matrix has to match the number of rows in the second matrix. Now that sounds like a mouthful, so we're going to make it a little bit easier on you. If you list the dimensions of them as you are multiplying, so we have a 2 by 3 matrix multiplied by a 3 by 2 matrix, you're going to notice if the inside numbers have to match. So this 3 and this 3, if they match when you're writing them left to right, then you can multiply, you will have an answer, and they're compatible. Not only that, your answer, whatever you get when you multiply, of course you're going to get a matrix out, is the outer pair of numbers. So the product of this is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. So that's first issue, is just can you multiply, and what is your answer going to look like? So if we have an example here, we have a 2 by 2 matrix multiplied by a 2 by 3 matrix. So 2 by 2, 2 by 3, they are compatible. Okay? And now I want to talk about those rows by columns that we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to set up a blank matrix on my answer key. I know it's going to be a 2 by 3 matrix, because that would be the outer pair of numbers on the orders. And when I say rows of the first times the columns of the second, you're going to pair up numbers. So this first element in the first row, 2, is going to pair up with 3, and you multiply. And then this -1 is going to pair up with 5, and you multiply those, and then you add the two different products together. And you basically repeat that pattern for every possible combination. So this 2 and -1 is going to also pair up with -9 and 7. And you see that product there being added together. And again, the 2 and -1 are also going to get paired up with 2 and -6. So 2 times 2, -1 times -6. And those get added together as separate products as well. Notice the row and column you use. So for example, first row, and then in my other matrix, second column. That's going to give me my first row, second column answer in the product. So depending on which row and column you use gives you the position for your answer. So now let's finish this up. This time we're going to go through my second row with my first column. So 3 times 3, 4 times 5, and you add them together. And the next one's this one's gonna be 3 times negative 9 plus 4 times 7. And that was my second row, second column. So that should be my second row, second column position. And in the very last one, this little corner spot here, I'm going to pair up 3 times 2 plus 4 times negative 6. Now the last thing to be done here is actually simplify each of those answers. And that's what we have here. Again, notice the dimensions are 2 by 3, and that's exactly what we expected from here. If you need to see this again, I'm going to just you can hit pause, but I'm going to move on to the next example. Here we have a 2 by 3 times a 2 by 2. Okay, so again, we're going to compare our dimensions, and we're going to notice that the number of columns and rows do not work. Those inside numbers don't match. So honestly, we're done. We cannot multiply these together. I'm going to just skip number 3, ignore this one. Number 4 is the last one. We're going to finish up this example one more time. So we have a 2 by 2 times another 2 by 2. They are compatible, and look at these outside numbers. They should give us a 2 by 2 matrix. So again, we're going to pair up rows of your first, columns of your second. So I should have a 0 times 4 plus negative 1 times negative 2. And I'm using my first row, first column, and that's going to go in my first row, first column answer. 0, negative 1 gets paired up with 3 and 5 this time. So 0 times 3, negative 1 times 5. And that's going to go into my first row, second column answer, because I was using my first row and the second column. And again, we have a 1 times 4, 0 times negative 2. So I'm going to match up my second row, first column, and that's going to give me the second row, first column pair. And the last one, I'm looking for my second row, second column over here. So I'm going to use my second row, 1 and 0. And I'm going to match it up with my second column, negative 3 and 5. So it's going to be 1 times negative 3, 0 times 5, match up here. And then quickly just simplify each of those 4 expressions, and that's what you should be getting out as your answer. I understand this can be a very complicated process, but it's one of those things that after you run through it once or twice, it's really not so bad, but you do need to put the time in and practice on this. This is a skill that if you don't know how to multiply these two, the rest of this week is going to be very frustrating. So there's a set of problems, there's a set of practice problems on the course page. Please take the time, please practice them, and reach out if you have any questions. I can do a video chat, I can address in an email, I can do whatever you need to help clarify your issues. But good luck with the work, and we'll touch base tomorrow.